G'day, Brandice. Welcome to the Hidden Wire podcast. Great to have you here with me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Here with me, but not here with me. You're over. Where are you?
I'm in
Over in
Florida in the
Florida.
US. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, beautiful spot. Whereabouts?
It really is. We're in Clearwater. So this is a big spring training area. So we're really busy right now with tourists from all over the country.
All
That's
right.
baseball spring training. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Cool.
But I
And
love Australia. It's
yeah, you
awesome. I
said you
lived there
lived
for
here.
about 6 months. I lived there for about 6 months, and I fell in love with it. If it wasn't for my family, I don't think I would have ever come home.
Whereabouts?
I was in Townsville with Youth with a Mission, and then we did a trip down to Sydney. This is prior to the 2000 Olympics, so it was a long time ago.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yes, I know Townsville. I'm from up that way myself. So
Awesome.
there you go. That's cool. And congratulations on your book.
Thank you. Oh, yes, it's been a birthing process, so I'm really excited to finally get to talk about it.
Is this your first book?
I have self-published twice, and
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun and surprisingly easy in comparison to the traditional publishing. But it's been a really neat experience because it's opened doors like this where I would have never had a chance to speak with people like you
Okay.
otherwise.
Having a publisher back here.
Hmm.
So the book is called Fully Nourished, a grace-filled approach to ditch diets and find peace with food and your body, particularly targeted at women. But I suppose our conversation today is about our relationship with food and body. So that relates to us all, right? So we can delve into the topics of your book, and hopefully people that are listening can find some value in that conversation. Now, tell us a little bit about your background. You're a nutritionist.
Yeah, so I'm a nutrition coach and personal trainer. And you often wonder like if you get into something to like fix yourself or because you have a passion for it. And I don't know what came first, but I've always loved fitness and nutrition. But I started out with a really distorted relationship with food in my teens. And so seeking all of the different traditional outlets from everything to like Overeaters Anonymous to inpatient treatment to counseling, et cetera. And I never quite got it. Just through this journey of understanding how faith can intersect with the practical habit tools and emotional wellness was really the journey that I went on and how the book was formed and really where my message came from. So it was a long slog, but I learned a lot along the way. And it's been so worth it when you can see when your struggles really allow you to help other people.
Okay. Um, I'm fascinated by the masks people wear, and I think you might touch on this. You know, people wear these masks to fit into the shiny world, and diet becomes a bit of that identity. You mentioned there that you had a poor relationship with food in your late teens. What was that like? What do you mean a poor relationship?
Yeah, so I pretty much checked off every eating disorder or struggle you could have. It started out because I grew up in the era of the supermodel. And so back in those days, girls were being targeted by these companies that wanted to teach you how to be a model. And really, they were just charging you exorbitant prices to take your picture and teach you how to walk, which is really a sham now that you hear about it. And so the first photographer that I met with told me that I needed to lose 15 pounds. And that was really at that age where my body was changing. And in hindsight, just a ridiculous recommendation. But I went home and went on a crash diet in an attempt to meet that standard. I mean, I was not overweight, very healthy, but that was the era of Kate Moss and all those girls who had the pixie style bodies, right? And
Right.
so that kind of transforms over the years. And that set me on the journey of like one diet after the other and just struggling hormonally and with my thyroid, I think just due to a lack of nutrition and nourishment. And, and each diet that I went on, each program that I went on, I just felt worse and more broken so that, every plan you go on limits this or limits that. Now you're not eating this food or you should be eating that. And all of these rules just bogged me down so that it was part of my identity, but I didn't know what I was without it. And it really consumed every aspect of my life. All I did was think about how much I weighed, what I ate, and what I was going to eat. And so it was
Mm,
miserable, truly
yeah.
miserable. Hmm.
But what's the alternative to that? Like if if you don't think about food, then you might just eat whatever, and not have any consciousness around what you're putting in.
Absolutely. I like to say the sweet spot
So
when
there's
it
like
comes
a
to
balance,
body.
isn't it? There's like a
Mhm.
swing there. Like you can go really into it and hardcore,
Yeah.
or you go the other way and just not even take notice of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there are times you don't think at all, like you said, and you just are existing on whatever is convenient without any forethought. And then there was those seasons where I tried so hard to be healthy, where it took up too much space in my mind, but both are miserable. Like you're not feeling good on either side of the spectrum there. And so it's finding that minimum effective dose of thoughtfulness where you can be healthy and be fueled and give yourself the kind of food that you enjoy, but also makes you feel great, and then move on with your life. So really finding that balance is hard, but when you get there,
Yeah.
it feels good.
I mean, with this food identity that you can relate to going back to that day, was it a search for something deeper that we're missing there? Like, why are we doing this to ourselves?
Yeah. I mean, for me, and so I come from a faith-based perspective,
Yeah.
specifically a Christian perspective. So that will be woven through here, but I could see anyone can find that benefit of identity. But for me, my
Hmm.
worth, my value were completely wrapped around my appearance and my weight.
Right.
That was it. That was where I was trying to prove myself if I could just reach a particular size or find the accolades from others about my appearance and weight. And so I think a lot of females, and even now and as time has progressed, I mean, I was speaking with a psychologist who was saying now young men are dealing with all things like trying to chisel their faces and like there's new trends, right? Even hitting the guys too. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
for me, I was trying to find the acceptance, and that's where my faith came in. And the thing that flipped the switch for me was really embracing God's unconditional love and grace in my life. And that could be that self-acceptance could come in so many different ways for people. But when you just stop trying to fix things and settle in with, like, I'm really okay where I am now, and you start to believe it, then you can move on and do the things that you need from a place of self-care rather
Yeah.
than always trying to patch things up.
So rather than looking for external validation about your self-worth, sort of going internally more so, and you used faith to help give you that support, sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the change for me because I mean, as someone who grew up in church, you can read in the Bible like Jesus loves me, right? And people can hear even from loved ones like we love you and we value you. But there comes a moment where you have to own it and not just let it be words that you've heard. You have to see the truth of that. And a lot of it came down to, especially with body image for me, was taking a look at the results. So, how is this negativity working for me? Because I think I thought if I was just mean enough to myself, then I'd finally be motivated to change. Like, oh, I'll drill sergeant it and I'll tell myself how horrible I did. And then I'll wake up one day and be motivated. But it only made me feel worse. And when you start to encourage yourself, like, hey, you know what? You're okay where you are now. You're loved. Like, you don't have to fix anything. Then you've got a little bit of bandwidth and breathing
Right.
room to then focus on something besides how much you don't like yourself. And that's really in my programs and in the book, that is the foundational piece from chapter one.
Yeah.
Diets and transformations, you go on, even if you're like biohacking, right? So often we're starting from a deficit. This is what I don't like. This isn't great. I've got to change that. I shouldn't eat this. It's like, wow, it's just so negative. But if we can start to be grateful for what we do have and take care of what we already have, then we'll begin to set that space in place, that mental clarity, that motivation to actually do better.
Okay, so it seems like a process of sort of delving within first to find that inner motivation. I feel like in my journey, and I'm not a great case of pure fitness or anything like that, but certainly I value health and a healthy lifestyle. Um, but there has been this moment. many years ago where it was like a external motivator to get me doing something. But then to keep me doing it, it always came back to having that internal drive because I found that if it was just based on an external factor, I would never continue doing it. If that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah, it wears out real quickly because it's that burst of motivation where consistency, is what's going to actually get us where we need to go. And probably a lot of the times we're not like cheerleading, rah, rah, I'm going to do this. There's like a deeper desire for it. And that's what keeps us showing up every day. And then we're willing to do more sustainable changes, right? It's not this like 60-day thing that I'm like, working out 90 minutes a day and not eating anything that tastes good. Well, that's not sustainable. And so you might be able to keep it up for a little while, but then who would keep going? Where if you
Well,
choose things that actually fit into your life that you can do not just today, but next week and next month and next year, and even on a bad day, then we're creating habits that become part of your identity and really can keep going long term.
Yeah, I
So
think that's the funny thing about diets, isn't it? Like they just are so short term and they don't actually focus on longevity or, bringing good habits into your life fully.
mm,
What is your take on
yeah.
diets? I mean, there's so many diets. I actually watched an interesting, I don't know if you watched The Simpsons, but it was about this group of people that were taking vitamins and all so heavily focused on this way of living. And then Homer rocks up and they do a blood test on him, and he got a 26-year-old result, which wasn't actually his blood. But anyway, they then started worshiping Homer and Homer's way of living, which was beer and hot dogs and all the bad stuff. It was quite interesting, but it was a really interesting take on the world that we live in right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get it. I mean, if I'm going to change, I want it tomorrow. Like, I don't want to wait 6 months or a year. But unfortunately, that's not how it goes because a lot of the habits that got us into the position where we're feeling desperate to change took decades to pile on. And it's so much more than just,
Yeah,
I eat chips and cake. It's why do you eat chips and cake, at in the evening? Or why is it that as soon as things get stressful, right, you go into a food coma or you pull automatically into a drive-through? That's more than behavior. There's like a need beneath that until we meet that need or change that way of thinking, you're going to be like swimming upstream because there's this drive beneath it that has to be met. And that's where the deeper work can really make it sustainable. And so diet is just a band-aid. I use the analogy of like
yeah.
holding a beach ball underwater. Like you can hold it underwater for a while, but eventually it's going to pop up. And the harder you push, the higher it's popping. And that's how diet's always felt to me.
Yeah, and I guess with diet and probably in your work, you probably find, but people will go through a diet, and like you said, like to get to where I am today has taken years to get to here. And I've often thought this when I've felt a bit overweight or unhealthy, and I start working out. I'm just like, oh, this has taken forever. But then I look back and I go, actually, well, hang on. Like you've just spent 2 months of doing nothing, or whatever it might be. So change doesn't come instantly. And I think often when we jump into a diet, we think the change is going to come instantly. When it doesn't come or we don't get the results we want, then we really feel, a level of self-worth decline. And I think you probably see that in your work often, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, well, when the changes are fast, they're usually not sustainable. Like you could cut out carbs and lose like 6 pounds in like a couple of days, but like it's water, and so that's not sustainable. You can't remain dehydrated long term. And so then the weight comes back and then you feel like a failure and it's just a mind game and it's exhausting. And so when we can choose other markers of progress like joy and peace and the ability to be present in your life and serve others, that's where things get really meaningful. And so one of the exercises I love to have people do is to really think about their values. Like what do they value in your life? Is it, learning or faith or family or service or, and so in the book I have a list of values for folks to look at and I encourage them to spend some time with this because I realized that my values are integrity, honesty, vulnerability, which is probably what leads me to tell everybody my story everywhere I go. But the fact that I was like sneak eating in the closet at night or like shopping for like healthy groceries and like so proud of myself and then going to the McDonald's drive-through 5 times for McFlurries showed me that like and I'm being honest here. Showed me that like I was so against my values of integrity and honesty, and that's why it felt so awful to me. And so choosing goals and practices that align with what's important to me, if recreation or sports or like reaching new physical goals is important to someone, then it's pretty easy to align those two together.
Yeah.
But let's say family is your number one, and then it that quick fix diet might not align with, loving my family well. Because when I cut all these foods out and I spend all this time planning my food and I'm working out so much, I'm neglecting the thing that's important to me. So, what can serve both? And that really gets you out of this critical mode of like finding all the things you think aren't right or what you're doing wrong or what can't work. And then you can allow yourself to start to think proactively. Well, all right,
Yeah.
what is a habit that can fit into my life that will help me feel better, that will give me the energy to spend time with my kids. And it's what we want, but those magazine articles and the flashy Facebook ads, they do lure us in. And so we
Yeah.
need that bottom line to come back to of really what our values are. And then that can be the lens whether we're going to go with something or not.
Yeah. I love that. So start with values first, and I think spending time, like you said, on understanding your values and identifying your values, they become a really good benchmark for how you live day-to-day life and what you do, what your behaviors are like. And myself, I've got particular values. I've got 10 values that I've come down to at the moment. And every day I try to rehearse them in my head and I'll try and live by them. And I don't always get it right. I know there's some values there that I sometimes get, like health is important to me. But there's certain things that I do sometimes that just aren't healthy or wouldn't be considered healthy. But I don't beat myself up for that either, because most of the time I am aligned. You sort of mentioned there, like, you're walking through the aisles, buying all these foods, feeling very proud, but then sneaking through getting McFlurries. Obviously, you've got, health values, but it's okay to also enjoy the McFlurry from time to time. But when you're living so secretively, like sneaking away to get them, you have that friction, I suppose, because it's going against your values and you're feeling really terrible. Number one,
Mm.
because you shouldn't be eating the McFlurries in your head, but number two, because
Yeah.
you actually want to enjoy life as well. So how did you balance that out?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it and a lot of dieters deal with it is that all or nothing or black and white thinking. And oh, it's so insidious and it's so silly because we all have common sense in our lives. You
Mm,
don't get a flat tire and slash the other four, but we go off our diet and we're just like, oh, that's it. It's ruined. I'm done. I have to start tomorrow. And those are the kind of things that kept me stuck, right? Because pushing my grocery cart, I'm on my diet. But then maybe I ate a little bit more than I thought I should. And maybe I grabbed something without thinking about it and then it was just ruined. And it's not logical. It's totally crazy. But that's really what the diet mindset and that diet culture can really get us into, that if it's not perfect, it's not going to work. And the reality is, like, one cookie is way better than 10. One McFlurry is way better than five. And when we can let go of that all or nothing thinking and really embrace that better is always better, then it gets so much easier, to fall within that 80/20, right? 80% healthy food, 20% fun food, or 90/10, or whatever works for the individual, and thinking of it more in that way rather than, 100% and 0% really brought a lot of peace and
yeah. Yeah.
knowing that it's okay. Yeah.
I think when it becomes a way of your life, like you just, I don't know, how do I explain this? It feels natural, it feels right. And you start to, eat a certain way and you start to just go, I don't actually want that. You don't crave it. But when you're in a diet mode, you're sort of going, oh, I have to really just eat broccoli and chicken for the next 10 days. And geez, I crave some ice cream. And then you just end up binging or something like that. That's the catch, right? Um, And I don't know, I've interviewed heaps of people on this podcast over the years about diets, and everyone's got a different opinion. Um, and what I've found is that you really just have to go through that process of diet yourself and figure out what works for your body, what makes you happy, without creating too much chaos in how it impacts your lifestyle. And test and try and experiment, and then it'll just fall. For me, I feel like it's fallen in natural.
Yeah. I mean, you're spot on. And that's something I do in the book is like, has anyone ever asked you what you like to eat? You know, whether you like to eat 6 times a day or 2 meals a day, or you like things that are like lighter or heavier? Do you like comfort food? Like, those are things that you want to consider and then use it to assess how you're going to build your eating plan
Mm,
because not everyone's going to feel great on lower carbs. Some people feel better with balance in their diet based on genetics and your activity level. So I love what you're saying there. There really is no one perfect way of eating. You've got to look at all of your previous experience and say, okay, what about that did I like? What didn't I like? And really, that's another thing that I have gals do or gentlemen do is you just like brain dump all the plans you've done, do a pro list, do a con list, build your own plan based on all the good stuff. Like some people will say like, "Oh, low carb was so great. I lost weight," or keto's the newer one, right? Um, but it wasn't great because I didn't stick to it. But sometimes the things that worked really well simply came down to being prepared ahead of time, eating a little more real food, thinking about it. And you don't get that when you're just looking at things black and white. So that's really
mm.
great what you said. Yeah, learning what works for you and giving yourself permission to do it. And that's ideal.
Yeah, I mean, I've been brought up in a family that, we had good food around us all the time, and we had lots of it, and that was probably the problem more so. But I had parents that cooked really nice food. And I guess that's not common in most households. So then you get caught up in the trend on social media, and what's the new trend? I saw someone the other day, and this is not a judgment call, but I just stood there and thought about it. He had this big bucket, and it must have been like protein powder. And I don't like protein powder as a thing, but I can't imagine anything worse than drinking protein powdered milkshakes. I'd rather eat fruit and vegetables or steak or something like that. But seems to be the trend that people jump onto. How do we navigate that space and really try and avoid comparison to sort of focus on what's good for us?
Yeah, it's that shiny object syndrome is for real. And I mean, I do a little marketing because I sell courses and products and things like that. And so I understand, the messaging behind things. And, marketing is essentially making people see a gap between where they are and where they want to be. And then that product fills the gap. And so when you start to notice that, and I've talked to friends about this, be like, just pay attention, right? Marketing makes you feel like you're missing something. You'll start to see those
Right.
messages as, you know, more that someone's trying to sell you something. And so you stop identifying with it quite so much. But then really have it written down, like we said, what works for me? Like once you like, I don't like fish, right? If I had a plan that made me eat fish, I wouldn't do it. And so that's a non-negotiable for me. And have those non-negotiables written down. Like if you enjoy bread and you may not want to eat bread every single day, but you certainly don't want to go on a plan that cuts it out completely. That's your non-negotiable, right? If you
Mm,
like this or you don't like that, it's okay. There is something out there that's going to be healthy for you, that's going to fuel you well. And that's just the truth of it. I mean, that's like every healthy eating plan is just based on mostly real food most of the time. And if we can get back to that and whatever that variety is for you, that's going to be really, really powerful. So knowing what works for you or knowing what you're focused on. And then another thing I like to do, I call it the idea vault. And so, like, I shop like this too. If I see something I really want to buy, I don't buy it immediately. I put it in my Amazon cart, which currently has probably 140 things in it because that's my holding
jeez.
zone. I'm not necessarily going to buy it. And the same thing can happen with nutrition. If you see a great Facebook ad or this new plan that's supposed to be the best thing ever, like have somewhere to just jot it down, notes on your phone, and don't act on it right away. Give it time, like have a regular routine of, assessing how things are working for you. If it's really pulling you in, you can put it in your calendar for a month down the road and say, okay, 1 month from now, I'm gonna reassess whether that could work for me. And that gives you a little bit of space and time to think about things because we tend to react quickly and then
Yeah.
end up with a bunch of extra supplements or extra books or extra programs that we wish we hadn't bought. And so that idea vault, you can go back through it later and, X out the bad ideas and the good ones like drink water and walk after dinner, like those you can implement for sure.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, we're very reactive as a society these days, and that's typically what we do. And that's not just about, the food options, but anything that we consume or respond to. Sometimes just having that little gap allows that awareness to come in, and then your values might flow in to help you make a better decision. Like, okay, actually, you know what? It seemed like a right idea, but now I think about it, it's not really aligned. And you, yeah, cross it off. I love that. What else in your
It
book
helps so much.
is a good point that you'd like to share?
Yeah. So as we're talking about things kind of pulling us away, so I talk about fruit, fruitful habits. And so from a biblical standpoint, but everybody will be able to see the value in this. If something is fruitful in your life, it produces things like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and self-control. Just like generally like good people stuff, right? And so when I am choosing a habit or making changes in my eating. And so we'll generally like the plan is we every couple of weeks we assess how things are going and we add a new habit. That's sort of the flow in the book. But I want to see make an outcome-based decision. Is this helping me fulfill my values or is this producing something good in my life? And let that be the deciding factor. Because if it's all about scale weight or it's all about, inches or something that isn't aligned with your values, we're really using a unnecessary measuring stick. We want to measure what's important to us. And so when you look at something and the outcome that it's producing, it becomes less of a judgment and more of a like, is that a good choice for me or not?
Hmm.
We tend to really judge ourselves for whether we're able to keep up with certain things, but when we step away from it and look at it and whether it's working for us, it's so much easier to say, I'm going to nix that. Like that wasn't a good fit. I thought I could, run, but it was just really, not feeling good physically. Or, wow, I didn't know that just a little bit of food prep would be quite so beneficial. And so judging the habit by its fruit or its outcome makes it less about you and makes you more open to what's potentially going to work for you.
Yeah, okay. I like that little trick. Mindset. What's the mindset shift that we need to make to start really delving into better food and body relationships?
Yeah. Well, habits are all the rage these days. So probably repeating things that your listeners have heard before, but
Yeah.
it's really about those small, sustainable habits and focusing on like one primary goal at a time. I mean, some things, are a little bit easier than others, but having that one focus is going to make such a big difference. As soon as you add a second focus, your ability to follow through reduces
Mm.
drastically. And that's where I have the readers select either like a weekly check-in or a bi-weekly check-in where we just see how that habit is working for us. And because
Yeah.
it's a frequent check-in, we're willing to put sort of all our eggs in that basket for a little bit and we want to do something until it becomes something that we can do even on a bad day. That's really the focus. That way, all of your energy that you were putting into that one thing is now freed up and you can move on to the
The
next. But
next, yeah.
it needs to be sustainable. Our lives are so busy. We're being pulled in so many different directions. And I know like you want to do it all and you want to do it well and we want to, you know, start a hobby and volunteer here and there, and it's just not possible. So we've got
Yeah.
to find something that fits into the spaces of our day and actually makes your life easier. And that usually starts with something really small. And that's where that seeing the fruitful habit can come in because usually it's some smaller things like prepping or water or walking or having that time of meditation every day that's going to have the biggest ripple effect in our lives and really
Yeah.
free up space and time. So knowing so I guess the mindset shift is embracing compound interest in habits. We see it financially. We're like, oh yeah, if I pay extra $100 on my mortgage every month, like I know it's going to pay off big in the end. Same thing with habits. If you can invest that little bit of extra as it becomes integrated and you don't have to put any effort into it, now you're able to add on something else. And suddenly in a year, you've added, potentially 12 tiny habits that really
Have a
create an
big impact.
orchestra of change that make a big impact. Yeah.
It's kind of like brushing the teeth, isn't it? I mean, it's just something that you do regularly without thought. And you're right. Like I remember a friend years ago said to me, he goes, because I was trying to change a couple of things, and he said, you're probably better off just focusing on run, trying to do three things at once. Whew, good luck to you. And I thought, oh yeah, I can do it, but it didn't work. Because you're right, your focus is just too scattered, becomes too hard. The other thing I like that you said there, finding joy in what you're doing and how you're living your life is really important because often all these demands that are coming at us that we think we need to take on just feel like a chore in the end. They feel like work. And then we feel like we're not actually alive and living and having that level of joy. And that's when we sort of scrap it because we're just like, oh, it's become too much. So finding things that fit into your lifestyle, I think is a really key point that you just made as well. So the book is doing well.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, you don't really know when you write a book how it's doing, but the
Hey.
feedback I'm getting is has been really great. And we have a community who's working through the content. I've had a couple people reach out that they're doing some group studies, so I'm hoping.
So who is this book targeted to? It's women, but
Yeah,
what audience there?
right. So it is primarily women of faith, so Christian women. There's a lot of scripture in the book. So,
Yeah.
and principles about prayer and, yielding your life to God. So Christian principles. And so, yeah, that's pretty much the
But
target market and who I speak to through my ministry and my website.
yeah. Okay. And ultimately, what are you hoping they get from reading this book?
Ah, to be able to stop listening to all of those different voices that are telling them,
Yeah.
like we're saying, all the messaging, and to know that this is a thoughtful approach that literally is a handbook that can take them from it's an inside out transformation, but give them the tools that they need to change consistently in a way that we're discussing, where you're not following a blanket plan, but using basic principles to find what works for you. And
Yeah.
so in there, like I have a chapter on there's only two things you can change in your eating, right? Only two things. And so I say it's quantity or quality. And so we'll take some time and the reader can think about like, am I ready to change the amount of food that I eat, or would I prefer to choose things that are a little bit healthier? And those are really every plan is just doing one or both of those things. And so understanding that the ball is in your court. You are the one making the decisions, but here are
Yeah.
some gentle guidelines I think is super helpful because we feel like we've got to have, a PhD or have something behind our name in order to make food choices. But really, we all know we should probably eat grilled chicken instead of fried and that vegetables are good for us. Now, how can you do it, right? How can you do it? We know it. How can we make it happen? And that comes back from to getting some personal autonomy and really some gentle guardrails to where you can decide if something's working for you or not. So my hope
Yeah.
is that as someone goes through the book, they're going to give this area of their life some more intensified attention, but then by the time you get into the rhythm of habit change, it just becomes something you think about just enough.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
enough to keep well, just enough to prepare and take good care of yourself and have self-care, but to get out of those years of where it takes such a large portion of your thoughts, emotions, and really bogs you down. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it, Brandice. Thank you so much for sharing your book today and coming on the show. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Lee. I really appreciate it.
For guys listening out there, all the show notes and links to Brandice will be in the episode notes at thehiddenwhy.com. So check it out there. as well as the book. And until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon.